And the day is here. It is the Progress Channel's first show, The Progress Report, with your one and only, Dee Sage. How y'all doing out there? It's so wonderful. I know it's 9 o'clock. Some of you all snug in your little pajamas, just had your showers and things like that, and relaxing, probably sitting next to the kids, having a glass of wine, whatever you're doing. But I want to welcome you guys to the first installment of the Progress Report, and there's many thank yous, but we'll get to that all later. We have a wonderful show. We have a city councilman here from Woonsocket, Alex Kithis. If I get the last name wrong, charge it to my head, not my heart. I'm still working on it. And I also have one of my very good friends here today. I have my good friend Trisha here, who is a former Miss Lesbian Rhode Island 2019. So it's going to be great talking to her today. But before we go any further, has anybody gotten their mail? I mean, I know it's been running a little late. I've been seeing some postmen at 7 o'clock. Heard some people 9 o'clock at night in some areas and things like that. I just want to know, like, what's taking so long to pretty much get the mail to people. In the past, we've gotten the mail right to people. But, you know, we all know what it is. President Donald Trump, once again, wants to interfere with the election, in my belief. And the one way he can do it is by what? Tampering with our mail, knowing that people are going to trust the mail-in ballot system in this election cycle because of coronavirus, which, once again, the president still believes, in my opinion, that it's still one big hoax because he refuses to wear a mask. He doesn't lead his followers to follow the rules and the social distancing orders or anything like that. So, y'all know what it is. But has anybody seen the interview with Joe Biden and Cardi B? I'm very honored that Joe Biden would sit down with someone like Cardi B, because that means that we're making some progress here. But, in some moments when I was watching the video, Joe Biden looked like he was a little confused on who he was talking to there for a little bit moment. I don't know if he knew if he was really talking to Cardi B or Aretha Franklin back in '76 or something like that. But it was very interesting that he would have someone like Cardi B sit down and talk to a presidential candidate, in my opinion, simply because of the fact that Cardi B is not really what we would call politically correct. She doesn't apologize for her grammar or not being able to, what people will say, speak correctly, I guess. And, it's funny because we've been told that time and time again as a black man. I remember growing up, people would simply tell me, hey, you have to pronounce your E's and your R's. You have to say this. You don't want to speak plain Ebonics. Stand up straight. Enunciate your words. Things like that. But someone like Cardi B changes the game for a lot of people and a lot of young people that may not be politically correct or know the Queen's English. So that's pretty exciting, and I'm pretty excited about that. But we have a good show for you, and let me introduce my guest host, my girl, my number one. Well, maybe number one. Maybe.
I'm in like top 5.
Top 5? Okay, no problem. I think your spouse is above you a little bit. Yeah. Well, we're cancers.
Oh, offended.
Cancers, we have to stick together.
When did I get married?
Oh, that was your spouse. Sorry about that. Sorry to put that. Well, I'm speaking into existence. You're going to get a beautiful ring and all that stuff.
You and everybody else.
But, Trisha, it's good to have you here.
Good to be here.
Yeah.
First show.
First show.
How you feeling?
Nervous a little bit, Nervous a little bit. Anytime you do something different or out of your comfort zone, I think you get a little nervous, But question, what have you been doing over coronavirus, quarantining and
camping? We've been doing a lot of camping. It's a good socially distant activity that we can kind of do our own thing and not have to really interact with a lot of other people, especially in an outdoor space. So,
I have to
take in the outdoors, you know what I mean?
I have to congratulate you and your fellow title holders, because you guys had to hold the title a little longer than most title holders.
Yes.
Because your reign was supposed to end, and then coronavirus blew up. Yeah. And even though you guys could have sat down and said, well, we're not going to do anything at all, you guys decided, well, we're going to continue working. We're going to push this food drive through Rhode Island Pride. And you guys fed, I heard, what was it?
Over 14,000 people.
14,000 people. 14,000 people, Rhode Island Pride, through the efforts of many of the board members there. But I saw a lot of effort from the title holders. So I thought that I tipped my hat.
Yeah,
I tipped
that
my
was Brett Jacobs' brainchild.
Yeah.
He called us and Ken went, "Oh man, Brett's calling." Next thing you know, we were setting up a food drive, so 14,000 people fed. But that's the thing with this COVID, like it's affecting everything right now. It's on our employment rates, our commerce, our economy, our healthcare systems, our childcare, our education. Like it's literally affecting every part of everybody's lives.
It's even down to the point where I saw a post today, someone's not going to be able to pay their rent.
Yeah.
And landlords are starting to ask the rent. And then, I see the arguments out there about like, well, the landlords have to pay their bills.
Rent during a pandemic is extortion. I mean, that's just where are people supposed to get the money? You know what I mean? How can you be evicting people in the middle of a pandemic? Talk about a way to make things worse. And now you've got, Trump's like on again, off again, and whether he wants to talk about it. And again, like you mentioned, the Postal Service, interfering in the election. At least you had the postmaster today say that they were going to hold off on any further changes to service and removal of boxes and all of this stuff till after the election, which is good. But, I mean, it's all voter suppression.
I agree. I think they always find one way or another to do voter suppression, whether it's putting less polling places in poor communities or tampering with mail system, and that's
purging voter lists,
purging voter lists, things like that. Calling on Russia to interfere with the election.
Former campaign Manafort, just came out that he was the Senate came out with a bipartisan report that Manafort was sharing information with Russia. Like it's for sure. There's no doubt it did happen. That's polling data. They were part of WikiLeaks. Trump's campaign knew that Russia was hacking DNC emails and stuff, and was encouraging the release of that information through WikiLeaks. They were intertwined.
What took them so long to figure this out, though? What really took them so long?
It just builds on the Mueller report, and all it does is just delve more facts out there, even though Trump will deny that
we all
he
knew
didn't know or that they weren't. But,
we know.
Speaking of DNC, though, Michelle Obama. You see that?
Let me just tell you, I love me some First Lady Michelle Obama.
Michelle. I
love Michelle. She's so eloquent.
She's real, though.
Confident. She's real. And, she once again called out the President of the United States as eloquently as she can.
She said, being the president does not change who you are. It reveals who you are. And who you vote for will reveal who you are. You can't sit here and say, "There's no, I didn't know." Facts. Look at the last 4 years. There's so much evidence.
Last 4 years.
Look at the last.
Have you looked at the last 4 seconds? Like,
I haven't
seriously.
checked. I didn't check Twitter in the last 10 minutes.
I know we're sitting here, so he could have did something in the last 4 seconds, sitting on the porch when
said that. She said he's had more than enough time to prove that he can do the job. And he's clearly in over his head.
Well, we knew that 2016 that he was in over his head. If Hillary would have did her job and just campaigned a little bit, Hillary. But also Russia didn't.
DNC's PR team isn't that great.
No, they're not. They're not at all.
They're not handling this Kamala Harris thing very well.
They're not handling the Kamala Harris thing. You know what the other problem is? I think with the DNC, they're not listening. They're not listening to the 18 to 24-year-old demographic. You know what I mean? They're not really, I don't think they're really listening to that demographic on what they want as a president, what they want in a vice president.
Joe says he is, at least in that interview with Cardi B, so we'll see. You're the change!
You are the change! You're the change!
Go watch the video if you haven't, you will understand.
Yes, watch the video. It was like watching Grandpa Moses.
It was like trying to have politics
lecture the kids. Grandpa. He was just missing the grandpa sweater. Anyway, with that said, so we have a special guest. Yes. Oh my goodness, Alex, City Councilman Alex.
And we're back, and we have special guest, City Councilman Alex Kissins. I'm sorry, is that wrong? You beat me up when you beat me. But he is here, satellite, of course, because of social distancing. How you doing, Councilman Alex?
I am good. Just hanging in there, I guess, like everybody else with everything that's going on. But yeah, thank you so much for having me, and I'm really honored to be on this first episode. That's really great. I appreciate this.
Well, I really thank you for responding to the call to be on the program for the first inaugural night, and I'm pretty honored to have. I was doing my research on you. I was like, I'm really impressed by this guy. Really, really impressed by this guy.
He was vetting you.
Of course. Let's take the first question.
Sure, yeah. So you have an impressive record when it comes to community organizing, from empowering downtown Woonsocket with the downtown Woonsocket, the collaborative.
Yeah.
And to climate action groups like Sunrise Rhode Island and Climate Action Rhode Island. How did these prepare you for your role on the council?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the first aspect of it is that it really got me used to the idea of working with other people and talking with other people in the community to kind of find common ground and find our shared goals, whether that's political or like in terms of community events or in terms of, more broadly the climate or some other big issue, and finding ways to work together towards those things, and listening to the stakeholders, listening to the front line, whatever it happens to be, and really making progress towards a better community, a better state, a better country, a better world together. And so like that kind of, those skills are very, very naturally transferable to campaigning and to being an elected official if you actually care to be a good elected official, because it's basically the same thing. It's being very open to listening to people in the community and working with them and working or trying in the best faith possible to work with other elected officials in order to produce good results for whatever the scope of your community is. And a second part of that is a little more of, I guess, not so much oppositional, but it's a little more that in the case like Woonsocket City Council, where there's a basically impenetrable 5-person conservative voting bloc, community organizing has given me the experience to be able to still get some things done, even when they'll be opposed by a veto overriding supermajority. Because, and actually, I guess the Pride flag raising ceremony and Woonsocket Pride is a great example of that. I think that if we hadn't collected, 700 plus signatures of people, mostly in Woonsocket, in support of that, I think it would have been a lot harder to get it passed, or at the very least get it passed without serious amendments that would have sort of messed with the original intention of it. And so that's a test. The fact that passed at all with the existing city council and knowing what they do is a testament to how community organizing and really activating and mobilizing and working with folks in the community who largely do share progressive goals, in spite of, I guess, their elected officials oftentimes. That
encouraging people to use their influence for their
So
voice.
let me along with that, because you said there's a voting block, a conservative voting block on the city council. So how do you describe, when you really need to get something, how would you describe that relationship with them to get things done, get things passed?
So I mean, I went into this with as much intention as, and I continue with as much intention as possible of working with them. I mean, I think that the reality is that there are 5 people who are very, very similar, who are, upper middle class, conservative white folks who don't really share a lot of lived experiences or philosophical like worldviews, value systems with the people in Woonsocket. And so, not only is that sort of naturally not in line with the majority of people in the city and with me, but that is also a sort of political, it's like a political paradigm that they would naturally want to try to preserve. And so my election was kind of meaningful in Woonsocket, not so much because of me, but because of what I represent, which was a a significant step towards a more progressive city government. And so that's a threat to what is the type of people and the families that normally get elected here, which are more conservative people. And so, all of that being said, there's an element of all interactions that is not really in good faith on their side. It's that, even something as simple as making sure that the sidewalks near schools are plowed when there's a lot of snow, or putting
More about the power than the people.
what was that?
It's more about the power than the people.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. And even simple things that, like, good government things that should be bipartisan, don't get supported by that group because it would be allowing Alex to get a win rather than, and Alex can't get wins. So, which is where community organizing comes in.
Yeah.
Right.
So tell us about the 3 other candidates that are running for the Woonsocket City Council seats under the Rhode Island Political Cooperative banner. And what is your relationship like with them? And do you think that they'll succeed? You said, your election was a big change for the council. Adding more progressive voices would be awesome for the people of Woonsocket, but do you think it's possible?
Yeah, so so their names are Charmaine Webster, Vaughn Miller, and Marlene Guy. Charmaine is I want to say 22-year resident. She works at the Boys and Girls Club, and with the Watch Coalition, which is a youth and racial and social and economic justice group in the city. And she has 3 kids, one of whom is still in school. The other 2 graduated from the Woonsocket public school system. And she's a very community and family oriented person. Marlene Guy works with the United Way. She has lived in the city for 27 years, I want to say. I hope she'll get mad at me if I get the number wrong. And she her background is in education. She's really passionate about education equity, housing equity, and making sure folks have access to housing. And there's Vaughn Miller. He moved into the city more recently. He's a little older than me. He is a veteran of the military, and he, his very much the idea of empowering the working class, and kind of going back to his roots, and really some of the work that we've been seeing done on the national level in terms of changing the political conversations. And so they're 3 really amazing people, and we all come at politics from a very different set of lived experiences, but we have a lot in common in terms of our values, and we listen to each other. And I think say, it was a special election for a single council seat in the middle of the summer. Both the primary and general were right near major holidays, and in Woonsocket. And so all of those factors meant that it was a very low, inherently much more conservative electorate that would have voted in that election, and we still won. So I think that that's a good indication, especially considering this is a presidential election year, and there'll be a much higher turnout in the city.
You're thinking that will help you.
Yes.
So I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this question. I wouldn't be who I was if I didn't ask this question. At a protest in Woonsocket, you were quoted saying, "I am committed to working alongside you to undo centuries of racism embedded in our government and reforming and rethinking our systems of criminal justice, policy, and public safety right here in our own city." What actionable steps will you take to follow through on your commitment?
So yeah, that's a big job. And I think the first step is that we actually need to listen to the community, because people are folks like people in the community who are people of color are talking already about this and what this needs to look like. What fixing some things in our government towards racial justice, towards undoing systemic racism will look like. And so I think it's important. An important first step is actually to listen. I've been trying to do that, and I think that having a majority on the city council who is willing to do that is important. In terms of actual policy, I think one of the big things is looking at changing the way we do public safety. And so that's going to be hiring professionals who know how to deal with situations involving children, or involving substance use disorder, involving people experiencing homelessness, people who know how to, counselors and people who know how to deal with those situations and really be compassionate in the way that they handle sort of social work can deal with those situations rather than the police. And I think that moving that responsibility towards, you know, community public safety officers that are not armed, that are not ready to use violent force, I think is a really important first step in terms of specifically looking at police and public safety. I think beyond that, there is a pretty dominant political culture in Woonsocket that is validated by the existing city council of pretty blatant racism and homophobia, sexism and Islamophobia. All of those things are sort of the old guard in the city. That's their normal political vantage point, and it's not only it's viewed as normal because a lot of the people who run for office here, and including the 5-person council majority.
You did put some. You did put. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you did put a piece of legislation in on the white nationalism.
Yes.
Belief. Yeah.
Yeah, and the reaction to that was
And the reaction to that was
they
terrible.
tore it apart and
Yeah.
passed it with some other ridiculous language, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So that a little background on that is that there's a on the 2-year anniversary of Charlottesville last August, just over a year ago, there was a discussion on a local radio station about the white nationalists that were protesting there, and a radio show host in Woonsocket self-identified as a white nationalist and said that basically he sympathized with those protesters. So that's, I mean, considering he's been in news and in, politics for a long time, he probably, as far as anybody could tell, he knew what he was saying. So that, that makes a lot of people uncomfortable. And so there was a little bit of a public pushback against that. And so with everything else that was the conversations that were already being had about the need to really talk more about racial justice, and the fact that the Rhode Island State Senate, I believe, earlier that spring had passed a resolution condemning or denouncing white nationalism and white supremacy. I wrote a similar resolution, used some of the same language, and added some community specific stuff, and submitted that actually at my first regular meeting after getting elected. And I thought it was going to pass without. I thought maybe there'd be a few council members that were mad that I submitted it, but I thought it was going to pass without too much discussion. And instead, it was actually amended to talk about green supremacy and, that I'm making up problems. Like, it specifically names me and disparages me. And that part is not what it is, whatever. But the fact that it really kind of denied that these problems exist, I think was a pretty big slap in the face to the people in our community, everybody who's not the 5 people who were responsible for amending it. So,
Right.
And we've seen in a couple of instances since, just on the city council, that vein of thinking is the one that they subscribe to, and it's wrong.
No, absolutely. I totally agree with you. That's absolutely wrong. Point blank, period. Especially in 2020, in my opinion. In 2020, it's 2020, so we shouldn't. I don't think any elected official, but unfortunately, it's like Michelle Obama. It is what it is. Yeah.
Well, so that's not the first time or the last time that you've had. Well, what's your first time? But it's certainly not the last time that you have had a lot of pushback on things that you tried to get passed. You recently had tried to steer Woonsocket through the COVID pandemic and submitted something that also kind of got chewed up a little bit. Is that correct?
Yes.
So that being the case, how have you done, or what does your track record look like in things that you've been able to get passed to tangibly help the neediest people in the bucket?
So, yeah, I mean, obviously, all of this has to be understood in the context of a 5-person majority that will oppose things by nature of the fact that I submitted them rather than the value of what I submit. So that being the case, I've taken an additional tact, which is to try to amend things that have been submitted by others in order to make them better. There was, one situation where I capped what could have become an enormous expenditure of taxpayer money on something that it shouldn't be spent on. I capped it to a smaller amount than it might have otherwise been spent on. And, I think that considering the economic situation we're in right now, that's can't be understated. There was another situation in which when we were first, I believe it was when we were first moving from phase 1 to phase 2, or like when we were first starting the reopening process a few months ago, there was a provision on the state level to allow outside dining where it was permitted. And so there was a proposal within the city council to allow our local restaurants, most of which are like mom and pop shops, like, locally owned small businesses. And there was an item in the council agenda to enable a measure of outside dining in areas where it might not have otherwise been permitted. And I amended it in a few different ways to make it a lot better for the businesses that would be taking advantage of it. And so I think, there are a number of examples of this. And then, in terms of bigger things, it takes an enormous amount of effort to show, 500 people in the city want this in order to convince their elected representatives that they should do it, because the fact that things seem self-evident is not enough if I'm the one proposing them. And that's the reality. And so what the most important work right now is actually direct constituent services, because that's something that I don't need to rely on the other council members to have a part in. I can help people interface with city offices and direct them to the right place, and running an election campaign to get 3 other good people elected so we have the majority.
Awesome.
Well, Alex, I have a couple of rapid fire questions for you real quick. Just give me a quick answer, okay? So,
Food.
we'll be good together. Favorite music to dance to?
Any like Greek kind of pop music. I'm Greek, and there's a lot of artists I like to listen to. Yeah, and it's good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, Alex, I really want to thank you for coming on today and being part of the inaugural show for the Progress channel, the Progress Report with me. And you know what? I'm going to give you a grade. How about that?
Give me what? Sorry.
I'm going to give you a grade. I'm going to give you a grade on your progress. Okay. I'm going to give you an A- because I don't believe in A's and A+. A-. Okay.
Thank you, and thank you so much for having me. This was great, and I'm really excited to see to see your guests. I know you're having Tiara Mack, right? So that's exciting. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to this. I think it'll be a little beacon in an otherwise sort of dismal national situation right now.
All right.
So,
All right. Thank you so much. Hopefully we can have you again. Okay.
Nice talking to you.
Absolutely.
Right. Nice talking to Alex. That was really nice.
That was great.
That was wonderful.
If you're not familiar, look up the Rhode Island Political Cooperative.
And so yes, as you said, next week we will have Senate candidate for Senate seat 6. She has a very tough race over there in District 6. She's running in my district, where I'm from.
District.
Right in my district.
Against Harold Metz, right?
Against.
I say it, he who must not be named. But yeah, it's running against Harold Metz, and she has a very tough race. But I'll tell you this much: it's going to be a joy talking to her and talking to her next week. And I'll have my special guest here. My special guest here next week, and I'll tell you that. But we're going to be back right after this quick message. So, also often, from the great porcelain throne in the White House at 3 a.m., the man, the genius of Twitter, feels the need to sit down and tweet some outrageous things. This is going to be a little segment I like to call From the Porcelain Trump Throne. Let me make sure I get that nice and clear right there. Donald Trump said, "Tell the Dems that we have more cases because we're far more testing than any company. Colin Powell is a neocon, WMD hoaxer. So, of course, he's appearing at the hashtag Dem Convention to endorse establishment's puppet and denounce President Trump. Does he really have to refer to himself in the third person? That's an ego thing right there. That's definitely an ego thing. Wait, here goes another one. This is one of my favorites. At Amazon and others in that business should be charged by the U.S. postal system much more per package, and the post office would be immediately brought back good health, now vibrant, with all jobs saved. No pass on customers. Get it done. Really? Really? You know how you can bring back the postal worker service, Mr. President? Why don't you tax Jeff Bezos and Amazon, who's about to become a trillionaire? Basically, can almost just buy a whole country by himself. But this has to be my favorite one, and this came in recent. This man's so dramatic. Oh my, he should get an award for like drama queen or something. Like,
I mean, he did.
He did?
Yeah, he was on TV. Remember?
Yeah, every day we
He got
have to
awards
do.
for being on The Apprentice. Do you know that whole thing was a joke too?
Oh God.
That they put him on The Apprentice intentionally to make a mockery of him, and he didn't even realize it.
I mean, he's also in the WWF Hall of Fame.
Is he seriously?
Yeah, he's in the WWF Hall of Fame.
What?
I guess he wrestled Hogan and they staged it so he beat Hogan, because I
Please
don't
tell me
think he
there's
could
a
actually
video.
beat Hogan. There's a video somewhere. I'm pretty sure of it. But yeah.
But seriously,
anyway,
he
seriously,
had to respond to Michelle Obama.
he had to.
at
You know,
the DNC.
he can't help when the Obama say something. He can't help himself. He
No, he
can't help
cannot.
himself. He can't. So
Everything is Obama's fault.
somebody please explain to Michelle Obama that Donald J. Trump would not be here in the beautiful White House if it weren't for the job done by your husband, Barack Obama. Biden was merely an afterthought, a good reason that very late and unenthusiastic endorsement. My administration and I built the greatest economy in history of any country. Turn it off. Save millions of lives, and now I am building an even greater economy. That is, than it was before. Jobs are flowing. NASDAQ is already at a high record. The rest to follow. Sit back and watch.
Oh, we've been watching.
Oh, Mr. President, we've been watching. We've been watching and watching. And I hope you're watching, because come the day after Election Day, we're going to finally get to say to you, you're fired. So, I want to thank each and every person for tuning in tonight for the Progress Report with Dee Sage. Thank you to my guest host today, Trisha. Thank you so much for coming.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you to Councilman Alex, all the way out from Woonsocket, for coming down. Well, not coming down, but, being from home.
For not coming down.
For not
because
coming
we
down.
don't want
For
COVID.
being, exactly, for social distancing. Thank you for social distancing. But until next week, I will see you guys next week, where we will have my special guest, your Mr. Gay Rhode Island,
My Mr. Garrett Island.
and my brother in the Crown and Sash, Brett Jacobs, and also
Jacob. He's going to
Jacob,
kill
sorry.
you. There is no
Sorry.
S.
Sorry, Brett Jacob. Brett Jacob, don't kill me, please. Don't kill me.
He's probably watch.
But yeah, and also Senate seat 6 candidate Tiara Mack, and I absolutely love her, and some more goodies. So tune in for next week, and don't forget to catch me tomorrow live 10 a.m. for Coffee with D. Good night, Rhode Island. Peace.